No, but the thing about Andhadhun is that
But
because I usually don't like a lot of thriller films because I usually I get an idea of okay, this is how it's gonna end. So because you always see,
yeah,
I remember there was this thing. So when I entered my college and we had to give our interviews and we had this group discussion kind of thing, and it was like a really nice idea, which was basically that we had to solve a mystery. That there was this we were given some clues and we were given a situation and we had to solve the mystery of who committed the crime and what was the murder weapon. And so that was the thing given to us, and I was the only one because I've seen and read like a lot of like thrillers and like murder mysteries and those kinds of things. So I was like, oh, this is exactly like Murder on the Nile, or this is exactly like Murder on the Orient Express. So I was like, oh, this is how it happened. So it was like where you have again people who've not seen or read Murder on the Orient Express, where you have more than one killers. So I mean, so it was that kind of a situation, and it was very cool because I was like, I just know this because I've read other things that this is borrowed from. So I usually have a very tough time watching a thriller film because I always know, oh, because of this clue, yeah, this is gonna happen, or like it's gonna end like this, or that person's the killer. And this is something that I had for like a lot of films in general. But I was very pleasantly surprised when I watched Andhadhun because I had no clue, and it just kept like changing from like every 10 minutes. It just keeps changing, and that was very cool. I had no expectations from the film, and I was extremely pleasantly surprised.
yep, same here. And
A similar movie of that type that I watched recently is Knives Out.
I
I don't know
haven't.
if you've seen that one. Yeah,
It's been recommended to me, but I haven't seen
it
it.
has a really good cast and it has a really good story, and I mean it's also very original in its storytelling and everything, and that was also something that was like kept me on the hook. I never was, oh, this is how it happened. Like I mean I like my prediction did come out to be true, but I was always questioning my guess, and that's not something that usually happens a lot, but it was cool. I liked
Yeah,
it.
yep. Andhadhun was like a really fresh way of watching a movie, I guess, because it keeps the audience engaged, but it's almost like a tug of war, and I really liked it. It was, I mean, I think the best part about it is that they don't tell you the answer, and I love that because it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, these days a lot of movies tell you the answer. They ask you questions and then they tell you the
Yeah,
answer, and it's like either you were right or you were wrong, but sometimes it's neither. And I mean, it's
correct.
kind of nice because it this kind of takes me back to what I was thinking about Haruki Murakami book, that it creates a lot of threads, and at the end it only resolves like one or two, which is very unlike a story. Generally, you expect that the story
Yeah,
will resolve almost all of the threads that they've created, but that
correct.
book didn't, and neither does Andhadhun. And it's like it does it in a way that's also satisfying. It doesn't leave you feeling like, you know what, that was a terrible movie and they don't know what they're doing because they didn't answer any of my questions.
You know, the thing is, I actually, there are a lot of really cool things in the screenplay as well. So I got my hands on the screenplay for the film, and I was reading, and I've read that. And it is like the way it's written is so like this the thing that you just mentioned of that they didn't know what they wanted
Yep.
to do with the thing, and it's not like that. Like it's written so like in so much detail that it's just, I mean, it's a really good screenplay to begin with, and they've ended up making a
Yep.
really good film as well.
So,
So that's a review of Andhadhun 2 years after the
yep.
fact.
I also got to watch.
Have you seen Badlapur, by the way?
I have not.
That's also a really good film. That's also a very, again, not what you would
Okay.
expect kind of a film. But I mean, it's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that also. You were
Yeah.
saying something.
So no, I mean it's like it's kind of funny that these couple of works have recently come into my life kind of like almost back to back. So I mean the book and then the movie, it's like I'm seeing a trend of the kind of things I enjoy watching or reading. And it's nice because I haven't really been through these kinds of works before, and it's a different experience, but it's very enjoyable. The book I mentioned was the Haruki Murakami book was, holy crap, I can't remember the name. No, hang on. Oh, it's the Wind Up Bird Chronicle.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so so out of the three Murakami books that I've read, well, four, not considering the short stories, I have to say my favorite is still Norwegian Wood, but that's just
Okay.
because I really enjoy that slice of life kind of narration. And Kafka on the Shore is a much more kind of traditional book where it has a plot, a quite straightforward plot. I mean, Norwegian Wood also has one, and so
Yeah.
does the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, but they're way less straightforward than Kafka on the Shore. Kafka on the Shore is very, it
Yeah.
has a direction that it's going in. Like you can tell that it has a direction. Whereas for the other two, I could not tell that they were
Correct.
going in any particular direction. And it's always like they're kind of just wandering down a maze. Like rather than there being a story, it's like the character is actually figuring things out as the story goes. And that feels kind of nice to
Right.
read. I was listening to Anthropocene Reviewed, by
Yeah.
the way. So that's a really good recommendation. And um, I was listening to this episode about, it was about Harvey, a movie called Harvey.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a really nice, like, it's a really nice, like, review. It,
It is.
and
Yeah.
I mean, I love all of the reviews that John Green has made so far, and they've all been really nice. But this one, I don't know, somehow, like, maybe because I'm hearing it so far after it has come out, it's like I'm
Yeah.
I, I really enjoyed listening to it to the point that I want to watch that movie now. And I also heard the one about the hot dog eating contest, and now it's like I have heard these reviews enough that now I'm starting to look at the way he kind of builds it, like as an essay, how he would write that thing. And I'm really fascinated by the way he kind of just
Correct.
creates, like he creates these side corridors that branch out from the main topic,
Yeah.
and he goes down into those, then he comes back out, and then he goes into another side corridor and he explores those very nicely. And he always finds some sort of meaning in them, whether it's a little bit funny or whether it's very serious. And often the main topic kind of gets left by the wayside for these side corridors. But it's a really nice kind of way to just meander about a certain idea, and I'm really liking the way that
Yeah.
he does it.
I'm actually working on a video for my YouTube channel, which is gonna be called Anthropocene Reviewed, where I'm actually gonna do I'm actually gonna go through some of my most some of my favorite moments of the podcast and talk about them in detail. And yeah, I'm gonna try to make it in the form of the podcast itself, and we'll see.
Nice.
We'll see how that goes, because I've really liked the podcast. Like Anthropocene Reviewed is really like one of my favorite podcasts, like head and shoulders above the rest, because it's so personal, and it's still conversational. It never feels that he's trying to be just extremely profound or pretentious or anything. It's always still very personal, very simple, very conversational. It's funny at times, but also it also makes you
Yep.
cry at times. and it's so unique in its form and its content as well that it's very like
Yep.
it's very nice.
It's like it, and his narration also has a certain quality that I can't really describe, but it kind of makes you feel uh, very comfortable while listening to these things. Like, even though some of them might be like effects of horrible stuff that we've done to the planet, or their reflections on how
Yeah.
humanity has like affected their surroundings, it's still like, even even in the worst kinds of examples, he has this kind of hope, this little bit of like spark of hope
Yeah.
for like, okay, you know what, we've done all of those bad things, we've invented bad stuff and like harmed the creatures around us, but there's like a shred of like, we're not bad people, like we didn't mean to do it, and everything isn't hopeless, kind of, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's never cynical or never like pessimistic, whatever the topic might be. It's always hopeful in some way. Or, like he always, even the small clips of audio that he puts at the end, they're also sometimes very effective. Like, sometimes they're just funny, but sometimes it's also very effective when he talks about a topic and then you have something that's very simple, but it just sort of brings everything together. And it's
Yep.
quite nice. I really
I
like that.
mean, I really like the review about the Yips, which talks about a baseball player and his kind of story of like, he had the yips and what he went through and things like that. That was really enjoyable just to listen to, but also kind of,
His ending for that podcast is like his endings in general are really good, but I really remember the one that he uses for that episode where he talks about the guy got the yips but the yips didn't get him, and it's so amazing.
I thought about it for the next at least 20 minutes. Like, I was driving a car when I was listening to that episode, and it was, I don't know, it was such a simple yet complex statement. Like, I don't know, I know I'm not making much sense, but it was a really nice way to.
Even something even so now you know that I don't really like football so much, but there's this episode where he talks about penalty shootouts, and in the process he talks about his team and about AFC Wimbledon and how they came back
Right.
into the leagues and all of that, and it's so effective. Like, I'm not a sports fan, but that episode, as well as sports rivalries where he also talks about football, and those two things are so amazing, and like they both just made me cry, even though they're about sports which I don't get, and I don't understand why somebody would be so obsessed with penalty shootouts or with sports rivalries, but it's just still so effective because it talks about human nature
Hmm.
so really well that it's very special. I really
There
like
is
that.
another quote that I have, like, I had to write it down because it was really good. And this is from the episode about velociraptors. I think it's the same one. Velociraptors and Harvey are in one episode, I believe. But
Yeah, they might be.
so this is from the Velociraptors review, and the line is, it's like, history is new, prehistory is newer, and I mean, this these two sentences come after like a long explanation of like how we've just recently started understanding things, and how like apparently the brontosaurus was like, it was considered a dinosaur, but then at some point people thought it was like another dinosaur misidentified. So it went from being a dinosaur to not being a dinosaur to being a dinosaur once again. Kind
To
of like
dinosaur
Pluto's
again.
going right now, but
Yeah.
let's not talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that some other time. I really like this. there's this one about whispering and the weather. So when he's talking about whispering, he talks about his son and how the only thing that he whispers into his son's ears is "It'll be okay, it'll be all right," and that's something I've really taken to, and in the last few days I've been using it a lot because it just seems like something very simple, but also something it's sort of like this too
Mm-hmm.
shall pass, but it's less profound, but it's also simpler, and it's more comforting, I find. Of just it'll be all right, it'll be all right. It's something that's very very like very
Yep.
nice. Yeah. So my favorite podcast, 5 on 5. It's cool. It's very. I really like. I like John Green's work in general. Like I was not a big fan of some of his books, uh, but some of his other books are
Yeah.
like my
I
favorites.
also really like his internet stuff. I mean, I guess the podcast also counts as internet stuff,
Yeah,
but um,
Vlog Brothers still counts. Just the sheer amount of stuff they put out on
yeah,
YouTube is
and I
incredible.
mean, besides those, like those are kind of engaging on a day-to-day level, where they're like 5-minute videos, but I have really enjoyed his crash courses, and I don't know, I mean, they are really informative, and they have you can see that a lot of care has been put into making each video, which is really surprising and really like kind of
I
reassuring.
have a minor squabble. I have a minor squabble with Crash Course because when I'm just listening to them just for the heck of it, when I'm just listening to them just for entertainment and fun, then I'm like, oh, this is very informative. I'm getting a lot of like a huge number of facts from like a big variety of things. But I've realized, especially with Crash Course Philosophy, I think this was, or even history, when I was studying for my tests, studying quote unquote, for my tests, watching YouTube videos, they did not really help much because they're not very like detail oriented, or that they're very, it's the kind of thing you want. Again, it's a crash course, so it's the kind of thing where if someone brought up a particular event in history, you can talk about it just enough so that you can show that you know about it or you've heard about it before, but you can't really get into the nitty gritties, or you can't make a lot of conclusions about why, what, how, what were the consequences and all of that. So it's not really helpful for that, but it's a good crash course. It's the kind of thing which helps you in conversational things when just topics come up, which is something that I also don't mind, but it's just something that people should keep in mind. So it's not like a complete a replacement for like proper history books and proper research about things. Even the Wikipedia article might have more information than a crash course history or a crash course whatever topic, but it is more approachable
Yeah,
and
and I
it's
mean that's
fun.
kind of the point. Like you can't really cram a lot of information into it because after a point you just kind of um, you kind of exceed the viewer's, I don't know, ability to receive information. And
True, that's also true.
I'm guessing like most of the people who kind of approach it don't aren't really looking for a deeper, more like analysis of cause and effects. They just kind of want to know what just happened and like a basic idea. I mean, the title is self-explanatory, so I
Yeah, yeah.
don't blame them. Like I think, like I mean, I've watched a couple other crash courses as well, like not just by John Green, but a few other ones, and they live up to their name, which I think is more than enough and pretty pretty satisfying. Anyway, I have like I just realized that when I was going through the Oscars nominations for this year, I I think
Yeah.
I saw in in the I think it was the best score or soundtrack category. I think I saw
Okay.
Avengers, and
Just a second.
let me see if I can
It's
find
no,
it.
this Star Wars and original score. Uh, Avengers, I think, is only in VFX, visual effects. Yeah, Avengers Endgame.
Oh, is it not in? Original score?
No, that's Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Ah, okay. John Williams. Of course. Of course. Of course.
Of
I
course.
mean, I haven't seen that movie, but like, of course, John Williams. And
Yeah.
the other thing I realized, like looking at the original score right now, Alexander Desplat, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but has
Yeah.
he has composed the score for Little Women, which again makes me even more
Really
excited to
good
watch
score.
it because I have
Yeah,
loved
yeah.
his couple of other musical works as well. So
John Williams, by the way, I'm just trying to find a good number, but yeah, he's been nominated 52 times for an Oscar. John Williams.
I have,
52 Oscar nominations. That man.
yeah, I'm kind of glad that like, I have no idea how to compose, or like, I have no clue, because if that was like anywhere related to what I enjoy doing, it's like, yeah, you would be standing next to a mountain.
His first one was 1968, and he's basically been nominated every year or every second year. 1968, 70, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 78, 79. I mean, it's just crazy. And like really iconic tracks. They're not just like awarded tracks. They're like really iconic. Like he's done Jaws. He's done the original Star Wars. He's done the original Superman. He's done Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's done E.T. He's done the subsequent Star Wars, of course, and the subsequent Indiana Jones films. He's also done Home Alone, JFK, Schindler's List, like Schindler's List. He's done Amistad, Saving Private Ryan, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, the best Harry Potter film. Um, he's also done more recently The Adventures of Tintin, Lincoln, and the last three Star Wars films.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Okay, I'm not gonna look.
He's almost like Ennio Morricone, na? I think Ennio Morricone is the most nominated person for an Oscar without a win. Till last year when he won, till last to last year when he won for Hateful Eight.
Okay.
Ennio Morricone is the guy who did the Sergio Leone films, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and those kinds of things. And he was born in 1928. So, composers, you can't touch them.
Oh my god.
Ennio Morricone, just again, facts. He has 519 credits as composer. Does this man not eat? Uh, crazy. Amazing. John Williams has 158 credits as composer. That's like more than three times. Yeah.
Okay.
How are you feeling about yourself today?
I feel very confident.
Here I am sitting in the, with these posters of films behind me. And like, how am I gonna? Okay, they were supposed to be there to inspire me. I don't think they are inspiring me anymore.
I kind of feel like that moment when in Brooklyn Nine-Nine is like Jake Peralta starts thinking about something. I forgot what the scene was, but he's like, "Oh my God, too deep, too real." It's like, yeah, you just kind of
It's like that.
start
Like,
falling back in your chair slowly.
Yeah. And the thing is, most of the things are behind me. So when I'm working, I don't really see all of them. Like, I don't see things like Roma and Avengers and things like that. But the one that's still in my vision, that's in my field of vision, is Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
And that is one movie. When I saw it, I'd seen it before, but when I saw it recently again, I was like, I don't think a movie like this can be made today. Like, even with budgets of Avengers Endgame, I don't think anyone can make an Apocalypse Now in 2020, in the 21st century. It's so crazy and so just mind blowing that yeah, कुछ होने वाला है नहीं.
On that humbling note, like, I just realized that it's still not dark outside, and I mean, I'm really happy about that because it's like the daylight hours are increasing now, and yep, it feels like we're going towards some semblance of normalcy, or like we are rejoining um, the rest of the world at large, slowly kind of like merging into reality. So
Oh, have you seen the new Veer Das stand up?
I haven't.
So it's a new one. It came out this week. It's called For India, and it's really funny. I really liked it. And there's this one bit near the end, which is really interesting. It's not something that I'd thought of before. So he talks about the famous speech "Tryst with Destiny" that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru gave during our independence in 1947. So the speech, it basically has these like really iconic words to begin with, like at the stroke of the midnight hour, while the rest of the world sleeps, India will rise to a new day, and like all that jazz. And he's like, at the stroke of the midnight hour while the world is asleep, but it's midnight in India, so it's like 2 o'clock in California. It's like evening in London, so nobody's really sleeping. And yeah, it just reminded me of that when he said, "You're joining society now." Also, may I suggest that you eat slightly less crispy, crunchy foods when we're trying to record a podcast?
I'm sorry about that. I can't help it. I
You're
love
literally
crispy,
eating
crunchy
biscuits
foods.
and kurkure or some Cheetos. I don't know what you're eating, but it's
I'm eating pretzels, and they are
incredible.
delicious.
Incredible.
Well, that's the only thing I had at like short notice. So next time I will get quieter snacks.
Yeah. Nothing more than gummy bears and those kinds of things. Or
Or maybe I'll
juices.
just get, yeah, just juice. Although I do like chips, so we'll see.
Yeah. You keep this up, or you're gonna be the only one editing the podcast.
It's like that episode.
In How I Met Your Mother.
From Yes, from How I Met Your Mother, where they talk about people chewing loudly.
Yeah. Lily Aldrin. Loud chewer. Oh, by the way, I finished watching the first season of Atlanta, and it's really good. I really liked it. Um, and it's really funny, and it's like satire. It's like pure satire. It reminds me of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is funny because both of them come on the same channel in the US, at least, FX. So I'm guessing I'm gonna look up more FX shows because I like their style of comedy. It's very satirical, and it's especially there's this one episode called BAN, as in Black American Network is the title of the episode, where they've done basically like, if you had like a specialty show in America, but it was on a black network, so all the ads are like made for African Americans. So you have like different issues. You have like, so they've actually made like they've made ads for Dodge Charger and things like that, and they've done like an entire episode where they're talking about the so it's about the rap scene. So it's about this rapper who's being sort of he's being confronted for using, you know, for using profanity on Twitter, and it's quite a nice episode. It's very satirical. It's very tongue in cheek in some senses, and yeah, I like it.
Okay. It's on Netflix, right?
Mm-hmm. At least not in India.
Okay. I mean, anyway, the odds of me watching something are horribly low at this point anyway. So we will see. But yeah, it sounds really interesting, and especially because is it written by Donald Glover?
Some of the episodes are
It
written
is,
by
right?
him. Some of the episodes are directed by him, but not all.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and he's like the creator. He's the showrunner of the thing,
Okay. Yeah, so that kind of makes it more interesting for me to watch that.
and he's acting in it also, and he's really good in it. Like, of course,
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite
I
nice.
I watched the recent season of Rick and Morty recently.
Okay.
There is, I don't know if you know, but there's like a new 5 episode season 4
No,
that came out
I think I've seen
some
the
time
first
ago.
two seasons. I might have seen the third one. It was the novelty was there like during first season, but
Yeah.
then it wore off. It just got a little annoying. Some of the idiosyncrasies of the characters just got to me. I was like, I can't deal with this.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, some of the stuff isn't great, but recently, I don't remember when, but for some reason we started watching it again. And because of that, I I realized like there were some bits that I didn't remember, which like on the second watch have like more punch to them than the actual jokes they're going for. And those are like some cleverly crafted parts of like dialogue or story or whatever, and it was nice. So
Have you watched
yeah,
Futurama?
I havened.
Futurama is really
I
good
kind
because
of
it's sort of in that same genre of animated science fiction kind of a thing. And I think Futurama is funnier, A, and is also less less of a shock factor, which I think Rick and Morty goes for a few times. And
yeah.
Futurama, it's really good. I like it more than The Simpsons because it's very intelligent when it does stuff now, and some of the episodes are really really like really cool, where you see how things have changed through history. So the main plot of the series, no?
I don't.
So it's written and produced by Matt Groening, who made The Simpsons. So after that, he was very pissed off by The Simpsons people, and like they're just making it like unfunny and whatever. So he moved on to make Futurama, and Futurama is basically the series. So there's this guy who lives in the current age, like contemporary, and he's like a pizza delivery boy, and he goes to this lab or something, and then he gets stuck in this machine which is like a hibernating pod, that you have these ideas where people, when they are dead, they're gonna preserve them and like cryogenically freeze them, and they'll come back whenever we have a solution for immortality or like things like that. So there's like this pod, hibernating pod. So he gets stuck in that, and then he comes back to again from his sleep like 1,000 years in the future. So he's stuck in the future, and things have progressed. So even if you watch the first episode itself, it communicates this really well, and it's very funny while doing like really like science fiction stuff, and it deals with a lot of parallel worlds and time travel and space travel and all of those concepts and aliens and all of that concept. But it does it by not alienating the viewers. um yeah, and it's really funny overall. And also one more thing, just because we're on the topic of Futurama, and I bring this up whenever I've talked about Futurama with anyone, the title track for Futurama always reminds me of the main riff from Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. So yeah, you should try watching Futurama. It's quite nice. I think you'd like it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the only reason that I restarted watching Rick and Morty was because recently we've played a couple of board games which were Rick and Morty themed, and I mean, since we played that, it kind of refreshed my memory about the characters and the events that happen in them, and I think that's why I started watching it again. But like the TV show aside, playing those board games has made me realize that like board games are a lot of fun. Like they
Yeah.
are very underrated, and I mean maybe it's because we kind of feel like board games are for children and they're like snakes and ladders or ludo or like things we played when we were kids, but apparently, I mean, I say apparently because I myself didn't know this until recently. There are board games that are much more complex and that are not intended for like
Yeah.
kids 7. And it's like it was a really nice kind of realization. And now that we've played these games a few times, I really enjoy the game, and it's a little slow. Like many of these games that we play, it's like they're a little slow, and um, they take time to kind of get used to the rules and like to get into the groove of it. But once you do, right, it's so much fun, and I honestly just kind of like the wholesome nature of it, because the kind of board games that I think about when I think about like for people our age or older,
Yeah.
it's like they're like Scrabble or Monopoly or Jenga, and these are the board games that you usually find, I don't know, in like hostels and like
Right.
just cafes, or like this is the general expectation more or less. But there are more creative, more challenging, I guess, board games out there, and I don't know. I'm really having a good time just playing those, and it's been a nice realization. So much so that I think like from now on, I will try to find or try to keep an eye out more for such kinds of games, and usually they come in like these themes. So, like I said, I played a game which had a Rick and Morty theme to it. So the basic structure is something called a Munchkin board game,
Okay.
and it's basically like it's where you have a few people and each person is a character. So you have like character cards and they have certain like properties or they have certain powers, so to speak. And at least in the Rick and Morty version, it's like you have to go through the portal every time you play, and you have to face a monster and you have to defeat it. And then there are like peripheral things you can do. So you can ask for help while defeating a monster, and then you can mess with other players. So it's not just that you're playing on your own, it's like you can directly interfere with another person's play
Yeah.
or like their trajectory. And that kind of interaction makes it a whole lot more fun. So
That's
I've been
cool.
really enjoying playing those, and I highly recommend it because I don't know, I mean, I kind of miss this kind of wholesome fun that has gone away.
That's cool. That's very nice. These days, we've been doing a lot more like card games and board games as well, but mostly card games. So, and that's cool because the thing is now recently what we've been like, we've not really played like physical games. Like we're just playing virtual games. So even whenever like friends meet to play, like me and my one of my friends, we play chess whenever there's like events happening and we're not interested. We play chess, but we play it on the phone. So it never feels like you're actually like moving things around. And in a similar way you have just Monopoly also, like, or Monopoly Deal, which is the card game which we've played during our Kodaikanal thing. So that's something that we've been playing and it's become really popular, and it's a lot of fun because this is like the way because when you're playing things which is not with electronic things, you keep your phone aside, so you're not thinking of that, and it almost feels like it's so classic because it's not going to be aged by. So if you take pictures of you playing a board game or a card game, like that picture is going to be the same as people playing that game in like 20 years ago, and playing it 40 years ago, and playing it 20 years in the future. It's going to be the same. Whereas if you have like me and my friend, we are playing chess on the phone, that's different, and that version of chess might change because it's by a particular game maker, and then there's someone else who makes it. So even things like, even video games for that reason, like things like Tetris also, they keep changing. The way I played Tetris first was very different from the way the Tetris app on your Android phone plays, and it feels like it keeps changing. So you get updates, but it also doesn't feel timeless anymore. It feels very, fixed in time at one particular point. Whereas you can play a game of rummy, or a game of a game of Uno, and it's the same. And it feels nice to have things that are consistent and that don't change a lot.
Recently, speaking of Uno, so it like I you you kind of sparked a memory about like Uno, that a game of Uno that I played a couple of months ago, and it I have to say that hands down it is the most interesting game of Uno that I have played in my life, because there were so many rules, and maybe they are part of like the original Uno, although some of those I doubt, but I can't be too sure because I haven't read the rule book. But it was it was so much fun because I I think the highlight of that game for me was that even if you even if you manage to get rid of all your cards, you're never really out of the game.
Oh.
And it was it was um it was an event in and of itself. And I mean, I feel really fortunate that I got to play it, but at the same time, it was super confusing, and, and that has to be like a really crazy game. That so yeah, but I realized like Uno and like these board games, like they go beyond Monopoly, because honestly, like after a point, Monopoly got boring, or it got repetitive. And the same thing goes for most of the board games that people play as adults. And there was enough variety when we were kids.
Yeah, the thing is, now I don't think it's something, even a game like Carom, or like these games that we've played in our childhood, they feel like things that I don't think I could play every day, because again, time nahi hai, or like even even once a week is very, very like close to impossible. But like whenever there is time,
Yeah.
especially like on train rides, or when you have like a game night with your friends, it's good to just play a couple of rounds of these games, and it just sparks back memories of older games, and also it makes memories of these games. And again,
Yeah.
it feels timeless. That's my reasoning for a lot of things in life.